So welcome everyone. Welcome to my Honest Conversations. I'm Kristina Mand-Lakhiani, co-founder of Mind Valley. It's nice to see you guys. My guest today is Carlie Maree. Welcome, Carlie.
Thank you. It's great to be here. It is quite late at night where I am, actually. My kids are fast asleep and I'm very happy to be here.
Oh God, I think it's a good time to talk when your kids are fast asleep.
Yes.
Definitely better than a few hours before that.
Yes.
And Carlie is a best-selling author of a book, Soul Modes, right? I said it right. Also, you are a professional in motivational intelligence, which I have to confess is a completely new term to me. And we declared the topic that it's going to be on motivation and intelligence, but I'm interested in particularly the motivational intelligence as in this term. So we'll go into that. Yes, welcome to Honest Conversations. We are jumping straight into conversation. It is those who have been with me for a while, they know that the conversations are very casual. And I do announce the topic, but since I want it to be an honest conversation, sometimes it just walks off into another direction. We'll see how it goes. So
sounds perfect to me.
Sorry?
That sounds perfect to me. I love it. I love honest, casual, comfortable conversations. Let's do it.
That's awesome. So the first question is the most important question. What does it mean, motivational intelligence? I know the words separately. I'm not sure if I understand the term properly. I was actually guessing before we started this conversation. I was talking to a friend and I was trying to guess what it means.
Well, it's two words that I kind of just put together because I was fascinated by emotional intelligence, but I realized that what I was discovering and playing with and studying and teaching wasn't quite that. It was almost like its own little side section. And so I was just saying to someone one day, it's kind of like emotional intelligence, but more like motivational intelligence. And it was sort of just this play on words that then just stuck. And, and now it's kind of just how I describe what I do. But I use it to describe basically having an understanding of what motivates us, what drives us, and what holds us back. And that's my life's work. It's what my book is about. And it's something that really fascinates me because I think that sometimes we think something's going to motivate us and it doesn't always work that way. So it's stuff that's really helpful to know about yourself.
You know, Carlie, as I was thinking about that, I was wondering how much is there similarity really with any kind of other intelligence? Because when we're talking about IQ, for example, or emotional intelligence, they say there is some certain innate level that is given to you. And some people are better, some people are worse. And the unfortunate news that a lot of people say, at least when it comes to like IQ type of intelligence, that you can't really shift it from what is innate to you. So is there such thing with motivation? Some people are just naturally more motivated.
Yeah, I think that if it's a bit like, it's like you're driving a car and it turns out this car you're driving is actually a Lamborghini, but you're not going to get this performance out of it if you don't know how to drive it. So I think that a lot of people have a lot of potential to really work with themselves and work with their own energy in a way that is going to motivate them or work with what they're naturally motivated towards. So in my book, I talk about different energetic states that we move through. So sometimes we're very motivated to create positive change in our lives and to do really tangible, productive things. Sometimes we're quite motivated to go internal and really check in with ourselves and nourish and rest. That's something that some people, tell themselves they need to do at 5 a.m. every day, but they might not actually be motivated to do that in that moment. So working with the energetic state that you're in, to me, that is motivational intelligence, and people can find that they can work more in flow with their own natural energy if they understand how they work, rather than going, oh, I'm not motivated, I'm no good, but understanding, go, oh, okay, I can work with my own energy here and I can feel more naturally motivated towards the things that I want to do. So it's just getting to know yourself. And that's what I teach, is how to go on that journey with yourself, because then you're not fighting against yourself. You're working with your own natural energy. So motivation comes more easily. It's not something you have to find. It's something that comes more naturally then if you understand how you work.
Well, I know in my life there are people who I would consider super motivated no matter what they do. They even talk like this, and then other people who are a little more I don't know, quiet, but that doesn't mean they're not motivated or driven, I guess, right? So I guess my question would be, how do you know when you have to push yourself? And how do you know when you have to actually give yourself a break? Because we all, I guess now it's even a more appropriate question because it's been such a weird year. Sometimes finding motivation, even the most motivated among my friends are sometimes don't sound quite their usual self. So how do you know where you really have to shake yourself up and shake yourself back into state versus where you have to listen to the resistance in your body and actually go and explore that one? That's the big mystery I have never been able to resolve.
Yeah. So in my book, Soul Modes, I talk about these 4 different modes that we move through. And in each of these modes, so what happened was I discovered something really interesting, something really big, and I put it in my book. And that's the reason why so many people bought it, because everybody's buying it for their friends, because they're like, wow, I've learned something about myself. Why don't we all know about this? And I talk about these 4 different energetic states that we move through. And it seems to be most strongly affecting women. More so than men, or men that kind of identify as being feminine at their core. There's certainly, so most women and some men. And we move, it has nothing to do with a menstrual cycle, nothing to do with a lunar cycle, anything like that. It all has to do with you and what you need in order to fill your cup. So if we have a full cup, we're going to be much more productive and effective and feel better about ourselves and all of that. But the thing is, the story that kind of gets told is we've only got 1 cup to fill. You have to fill your cup by taking a nap or go and have a massage or go to a day spa. And sometimes what's actually going to fill your cup is to write a list of all the things you need to do and get them done, right? Sometimes that's going to feel really nourishing. So we move through these 4 different energetic states. And if you know which state you're in, which mode you're in, you're going to know exactly what the best course of action to do is. Wild mode, bear mode, super mode, and sparkle mode, I call them. And each of those modes, there's a different kind of way of being or things to do that make the most sense to do. So I do all of my admin work in super mode. I don't bother trying to motivate myself to do admin when I'm in bear mode, because bear mode, that's not what bear mode is for. Bear mode is for me to rest and go internal or meditate or journal. Wild mode is about decluttering and creating positive change in our lives. Sparkle mode is about connecting. It's about presence. It's about gratitude. So each one of them, and I can go into them in detail if you'd like me to, but each one of them has a different set of things that make sense to do. So if you're in super mode, it's like, okay, I know that if I write a list, that's going to motivate me. But if I'm in bear mode, it's like, actually writing a list is just not going to work for me. It's just going to tire me out more.
I think we definitely should go into those different modes, especially that I saw your cute video when you were in the bear mode, wrapping yourself up into a blanket and falling back into the bed. That was that was very interesting and cute. So Carlie, back to that. Can you tell us more about the different modes? I don't really actually want to go into that because I resonate. I know sometimes all I do is I declutter my email mailbox and I feel so much better. So I understand that it must be some other kind of motivation happening.
Yeah, and then other days you're like, I couldn't think of anything worse than going through my email inbox right now. I don't even want to look at my email inbox. And other times it's like, right, I'm going to get in there and get it organized. So there are 4 different modes that I talk about. I call them the soul modes. And as we move through them, I call it our soul flow. The reason why I call it our soul modes is because it helps us to know what's going to fill our cup on a soul level, and also what we're kind of being driven to by that deepest, most innate, truest part of ourselves. And so there's the 4 of them. They always go in order. So if you've got an inkling of which one you might be in now, you know which one's coming next. And if you do shift into that one, then you'll know, yes, okay, that was the right one. And then you'll know what's coming next and you can start to track it. So the first one that I like to talk about is wild mode because it's my favorite. It didn't used to be. And a lot of people say to me, there's 1 or 2 of the modes that they used to not like when they first came across this work. And then they've started to embrace it and started to really surrender to it and do what it's asking them to do. And then they're like, now I love it, right? And wild mode is that for me. So wild mode is when we can find ourselves quite frustrated, quite fiery. for me, it's a very fiery energy. I feel very driven to want to create positive change in the world. So when I see things that seem unjust to me, I get very fired up about it, and I'll debate things with people, and other times it's like, I'm not going to argue with them about that, So wild mode, it's very much like that for a lot of people. They suddenly find themselves decluttering, whether it's decluttering their wardrobe, their closet, or decluttering their inbox, or going, right, that's it. I'm going to get fit. I'm going to get healthy. I'm making big changes. That's it. It's very, it can be very beautiful. It's really powerful for connecting to what you actually want underneath the fears, underneath the worries, underneath the limiting beliefs. Those get quieter. And that internal fire, that internal compass that's coming from that really deep, true place, it gets louder. And it's very powerful for a lot of people who have been in habits of people pleasing, and you'll find that might fall away. It might be easier to set boundaries. It might be easier to have some challenging conversations, because we have that kind of that strength a little bit more. My partner, he used to not really like my wild mode very much. He used to find it quite challenging. Now that I have stopped kind of stifling her, our wild woman, that wild woman inside of us, she wants freedom. She doesn't want to be stifled. She can't be in a box. So when I'm in wild mode and I open my diary, my calendar in the morning, and I see lots of appointments, it's like, oh, I haven't got freedom. But when I know that I've got my kids being looked after for the day and there's nothing in my diary, it feels so glorious. It's really exciting. The wild mode is a really good one.
It's a little, maybe it's still a little confusing in my head, because on one side, when you were describing, it felt like exactly that state that society considers as highly motivated, go-getter kind of state. I'm going to just do that. But on the other hand, you just said that you don't like to be constricted in that mode because you don't like your diary being full. You want to have the freedom, which is interesting. It is superficially contradictory. I think deep inside it's not, because on the surface, it seems like this is the mode of those people who are super achievers. But we also know that those people who are super achievers, they're a little bit like in a hamster's wheel. They always have something to do. They're just busy, 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 and there is no break. And then you say that in that mode, that kind of busy is actually something you don't enjoy, and that doesn't feel good. So,
well, the thing is, it's like if you want to change the world, right? It's like it's big picture. It's more big picture. It's not detail. So there's 4 modes altogether. 2 of them are quite motivated. So wild mode is quite motivated, but it's bigger picture. It's like, I'm going to start a podcast. Right? Whereas super mode, which I'll tell you about as well, is also motivated, but it's much more detail orientated. It's like,
that's the hamster in the wheel mode.
Yeah. It's like paper shuffling. It's like, I'm going to write a list of all the things I'm going to do, and I'm going to color code the list, and I'm going to do all my meal planning, and I'm going to have a schedule for my week, and I'm going to book in all my gym sessions, and I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. every day and have a green smoothie, right? That's your superhuman. That's in super mode. In wild mode, it's like, don't you tell me what time I have to get up in the morning. I will do whatever I want. And so it's not like getting things done so that things will be done. It's getting things done because I want life to be better. It's more, it's bigger picture, less detail.
It's both when you're ready to grab the hammer and start hammering everything around.
Yes. Yeah. Changing it all. If you run a business, for example, it might be like, right, we're changing the way we're doing this. We're hiring 3 new people. We're not doing this anymore. We're changing the name of this program, like big things like that. Whereas in super mode, it might be more like, okay, guys, so I think we're going to start having meetings every Monday. And, here's a list of all the things I need you to do by tomorrow. And it's more detail. Yeah.
Okay.
More level-headed, more sensible.
So, Carlie, can you tell us about the modes in their right sequence, and ignore my questions because I'll be having more questions.
Yes.
And then later, I'd like you to tell us how to harness the different modes. But I think it's interesting to see the 4 modes first.
Absolutely. So there's wild mode, and then after wild mode comes bear mode. So how often, I imagine, right? Let's get some hands up for anyone who has been all fired up. I'm going to change the world. I'm going to change my life. things are going to be different now. I'm going to have boundaries. I'm going to do all these things. And then suddenly this crisis of confidence, it's like, oh no, actually, I don't want to do that anymore. Actually, what was I thinking? That's crazy, right? It's so often, a client might say to me, oh, I'm going to start a podcast. And then the next day they might be like, oh, actually, who even wants to hear what I've got to say? I don't think I have time. I'm tired. I'm overwhelmed, right? So bear mode, it comes after wild mode for a reason. What it does is it gets us to stop being up in our head so much and the busy, busy mind. And it gives us a quiet moment. We crave stillness. For me, I need stillness. I need quiet. I need kids not jumping on me. I need to not be worrying about a messy house. I just need to have a moment for me. And in those moments, it gives us an opportunity for the things that need to move up and out. Some of the things we're holding on to, emotions we're storing in our body, limiting beliefs that are just on a loop, negative thought patterns that are just on a loop, they're going to reveal themselves. But the thing is, when you don't know what's happening, it can just feel like a crisis of confidence. It can just feel like I'm overwhelmed. Everything we're telling ourselves, we just take it as truth, right? I'm overwhelmed. I'm too tired. I'm not good enough at this. I'm just going to cancel everything for the next month. Whereas actually might just need a couple of hours of turning all the screens off, or, taking a nap, or going for a walk in nature with a friend. We need that stuff. And so bear mode is that reminder to come back to you, to work on your energy. It's almost like this is in bear mode. I feel like the universe, bear, right? Because it's like a hibernating bear in a cave. It's like, I need the world to stop. The way I describe it is sometimes you need to turn down the volume on the world so you can hear the universe, so you can hear something bigger. And so you can hear you, so you can hear your heart. And it can be a very beautiful time. But the problem is that a lot of society makes it a bad thing if we take a break, or we tell ourselves that we can't and that things won't get done. But the thing is, if we surrender to that, if we fill our bear cup, we will shift into super mode so much more quickly. A lot of people say, how fast am I moving through the modes? And I say, however fast you're filling those cups. Because if you fill your wild cup, if you do some things that make your inner wild woman happy, you'll shift into bear mode. And then you fill the bear cup and you do some things that make your inner bear happy, like it might be meditation, or it might be reading a book. And then you're going to fill that bear cup. So it might only be a couple of hours, or it might be a couple of days. It depends how efficiently you can give your soul what it needs in that moment for that mode.
So the next one, I'm guessing now.
Super. Super mode comes next. So super mode is the one where we want routine, we want structure, we want productivity, we want tangible results. So it's often when someone says, okay, I'm going to start getting up at 5 a.m. every day from now on. Or, I'm just going to write a list of all the lists that I need to do. Or that people can get frustrated if they're not seeing results. I know for me, it's when I always am messaging my team, my staff, and I'm like, hey guys, how are you going with this and this? And have we done this? And where's this at? And right. And so super mode has always come very naturally to me. I haven't held back my super mode. I haven't argued with it. It's very easy to surrender to that because it's naturally part of my personality to be quite productive and to be quite detail orientated. And so over time, what has happened is I've realized my super mode is a thing. And now I don't let my super mode fill up the rest of my life. I take time to be a bear and I take time to be wild. And I don't tell myself, oh, I'm a very organized person, so I must always be organized. And then when I'm not, make that mean something about me. So it's really cool to understand that that's a part of you, but it's not all of you. It's not everything that you are. There are other parts to you, there are other layers. So super mode's great. I get really frustrated at my kids in super mode because we homeschool. And so I might be trying to email my team or get some things done or write a list. And my kids are like, hey, mom, come and play with us. And I'm like, in a minute, I need to get this done. And so it's nice to know, well, I'm in super mode. That's why I'm feeling frustrated. It's not that I'm a bad mom. It's that I'm just feeling this frustration, which is really understandable because my super mode wants to fill my super cup, which is create structure, productivity, tangible results.
So do we tend to be more in a certain mode or be more comfortable with a certain mode and less comfortable with other modes?
Yeah. A lot of people who I meet, particularly really people who I guess pride themselves and identify themselves as being very productive, often aren't embracing their bear mode. So every now and again, they just burn out. They just burn out and fall to pieces because they're not filling that cup. And, you know, sometimes people are like, oh, I need to take a month off. I need to go overseas and, you know, take a month off and go find myself or something. And so for me, it's like I don't need a big long break from my work, for example, because I take little mini breaks all the time. Every bear mode, I take a little break. It depends what I've got on in my diary, right? Like sometimes I've got something scheduled. I can't just cancel it. Some things I can. But you just got to do the best that you can with what you've got going on. But yeah, some people love super mode, don't love bear. Some people love bear, but don't love super. They find it really frustrating because they've got lots of kids around and they can't get the clear air to get things done or something like that. Everyone's got a different experience in life. So some are going to come more naturally. For instance, sparkle mode. Some people who live alone and maybe wish that they had a family, they wish they had children, or they wish they had a partner, or they wish they had family around, and they don't. In sparkle mode, when we're craving connection, which I'll get to next, but sparkle is really hard for them. They feel really emotional. They feel really lonely. Whereas for me, I live with my partner and my children and my family are all close by. So for me, sparkle mode feels really nice and happy, and I can fill that cup. Someone else might find it really challenging. So it really depends on your lived experience.
So spark mode. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, sparkle mode's a really nice one. Yeah, to a lot of people, it doesn't come naturally. For those who aren't particularly, you know, comfortable with intimacy, for example, or they haven't really explored, you know, a gratitude practice or mindfulness and presence. Some people find sparkle mode really difficult. Sparkle mode comes after super mode because it brings us back to the present moment. It really, for me, I know I've hit sparkle mode when I'm suddenly want to take my active wear off and put a dress on, or I want to put some lip gloss on, or I've put music on. So during super mode, I will listen to like a training or an interview or a podcast. But then in sparkle mode, I just want music on. Or I want to make a cocktail instead of a cup of tea. It's something that feels more fun. It maybe feels a bit more feminine. Sparkle mode, yeah, I lose all my focus. I get very forgetful. I have backed my car into our garage door twice.
Is that the mode when you want to go partying?
Yeah. So if you're quite introverted, which I am, when I hit sparkle mode, I want to see my friends. Whereas in most of the time, I want to be at home. But in sparkle mode, I'm like, I want to go dancing. Let's go out to dinner. Yeah.
This is such a cool system. So I want to recap a little bit and suggest to people, you will suggest the emojis, okay?
Yes.
So people are in different modes all the time, right? One or the other.
We all experience all four. So anyone who's watching, you're in one of those four. If you wanted to learn about intelligence and motivation, you might be in super mode because that's when we're most interested in that.
Well, we also have a cadence when we have our weekly honest conversations. So sometimes you might end up, you know, I'm living by the schedule. So sometimes I'm on my interview in a appropriate mode, which I think should be the wild mode. But sometimes I'm on my interviews in my bear mode. I'm not in my bear mode today, thank God. But I want to suggest. So can you leave an emoji to represent in which mode do you think you are right now? But we'll come up with emojis right now and we'll recap. So the first one is wild mode, and I would suggest fire. What do you think?
Yeah, there's an emoji which is like a little explosion, like a little spark.
Explosion or fire. Yeah, explosion.
It's near the fire one. That's the one I usually use, but fireworks as well.
So if you're in wild mode, leave a fire. I hope I'm going to show up in these interviews more in wild mode more frequently. So bear mode, obviously bear, right? Brown bear or whichever bear. So super mode, I was thinking of a star, but I think it's very similar to sparkle. What would you say? Superhero?
There is a superhero emoji. She looks like a little superhero. That's the one I use where she's like, I'm going to get it all done. Look at me go.
So superhero for super mode, and sparkle mode, obviously sparkle. So if you could leave who you are, that would be really cool. You see, we have bears here. Awesome.
Yeah.
And wild and superheroes.
Yeah, I like that. Some people use a little fairy, the Tinkerbell one,
Yeah.
for sparkle, because we're like a little sparkly fairy. We just love everybody and we're all gratitude and presence. And I forget all about my to-do list. I'm so forgetful in sparkle mode. But I love that time. It's when I'm really affectionate and it's a fun time. Yeah. And it's important to have that, right? The whole point of the modes, this is my theory, and all I'm doing here is presenting a theory, right? But my theory is that the modes exist for two reasons: that they keep us balanced, because, if you look at super and sparkle mode, it's very detail, and then sparkle's very, present. If you look at wild and bear, it's that polarity. So it keeps us balanced. It takes us to all the different places that we need to go to be a really well-rounded person. We can't be in bear energy all the time, and we can't be in super energy all the time. People say to me sometimes, I wish I was in super mode all the time. I would get so much done. I'm like, yeah, but your family would feel really neglected. Right? You probably wouldn't feel super in touch with who you are on a deep level. So there are these other things that I didn't think used to matter. And now I see how much they do. And I see how much it creates a really rich life when
it's really interesting.
in space.
I've heard so many people, especially it is especially the theme among superachievers where we try to rank, this is important, this is less important. I've heard very driven people saying like, oh no, but relationships is not important, for example, or even the whole romanticizing of being incredibly busy. Like this is, I saw a quote somewhere today somewhere on social media that being incredibly busy is almost like the status symbol, which is so sad. I think it was Brene Brown actually who was talking about that. So I want to say that we have a few question here. So Luba, could you check if somebody of the people who are asking questions is willing to come online and ask the question directly? But meanwhile, I want to ask Carlie, so how do you harness those modes? Do you have to embrace and do the best when you're in a certain mode, or can you steer them and really stay more in a mode that you prefer? Could you talk more about the management of the modes?
Yeah. So as we move through them always in order, we can't really stop it from happening. But what we can do is, so if you're like, oh, I've got a big meeting tomorrow, I want to be in super mode for that. It's hard to kind of slow it down or stop it and go, right, okay, I want to be in super mode now, right? Okay, super mode. It doesn't really work that way. It's much more natural and organic than that. But the beautiful thing is that if we know which mode we're in, we can work with that. So if I know that I'm in bear mode, I wake up and I'm in bear mode, and I move through all 4 in a day. I move really quickly, and many really high achieving, high performance women often do. They move really quickly because they're very good at giving themselves what they need. They're unapologetic about it. They're like, I'm going to go, have a nap or something like that. So I move really quickly. So I might wake up in bear mode and I might be like, oh gosh, I've got so much to do today. And I'm going to give myself permission to just not do it yet, because I know that super mode is coming. And I know that when super mode comes, that part of me is going to love having a list of things to do. That's going to feel so validating for her. She's going to be like, look at all the things I did. And then I know that I'm going to hit sparkle mode in the afternoon. So I might say to my kids, okay, guys, I'm going to set up an activity for you while I'm in super mode. You're going to do that. I'm going to do this. And then in the afternoon, we're all going to go to the park together. Because then I know that I'm going to enjoy that. That's me embracing each mode. So I'm going to have a quiet, slow morning. Then I'm going to do some things in the middle of the day in super mode. Then I'm going to have a sparkly afternoon with my kids. And then I might hit wild mode that night and I do a big tidy up of the house and, all that sort of stuff, prepare for tomorrow. So it's really cool to just kind of go, I know what's going to feel good for me. So I'm going to plan my time as best as I can. But besides that, if you're like, I've got a bunch of appointments today and I've just got to do that, then just take the best care of yourself as you can around it. Just know that about yourself. And that's the thing, as you go through this journey, you get to know, like I know I'm in wild mode when I start saying swear words. That's when I know I'm in wild mode. My wild woman swears. So I'm like, oh, wild mode, cool. I'm going to be in bear mode later. So I'm going to clear my schedule for the afternoon and I'm going to work after the kids go to bed. So it can it's like a life hack.
It's interesting because I've noticed that with this super long year that has passed, and with a lot of sameness, because I used to have very irregular life, but because it's been the same for such a long time, I've been programmed, I think, by the time. So sometimes when it gets dark, I just can't get my super mode on anymore. I used to work at nights sometimes. Now for me, it's like, no, that's not that time of the day. So can you actually can it actually happen that you program yourself to a certain mode in certain circumstances, or this is something which can be remedied?
It's probably that there's a rhythm, and that you might be shifting really quickly. So what might have happened is in the past, you used to hit super mode at nighttime, and then it's shifted, and now maybe you're hitting bear mode at nighttime. So it might have just changed over the time, and that's fine. So that's the thing, is you don't even necessarily need to know which mode you're in. I hear a child?
No, I think it's we have Jane who's ready to talk to us. Maybe she's having someone in a sparkle mode next to her.
Might be, yeah. So yes, I suppose just if you know that about yourself, and if you're like, it doesn't feel good for me to work at night anymore, great. But if you one day go, oh, I actually really want to do some work tonight, you might be like, super mode might be here. And it might just be a bit of a clue. And then see if you wake up feeling extra affectionate or extra loving or extra grateful. Gratitude comes so easily in sparkle mode. And I think sometimes we're like, okay, I must do gratitude journaling every single morning. And sometimes it feels really good. And sometimes it's like, oh, if this feels forced, this feels hard. It's not coming easily today. I don't want to do it today. So for me, I don't really do things by the clock as much. I might, if I'm journaling in the morning and I'm in super mode, it's going to look like, here's all the things I want to do. Whereas if I'm journaling in the morning and I'm in sparkle mode, it's going to look like, here's all the things I'm grateful for. It's going to look quite different. And in bear mode, it might look like, here's some things that I'm ready to be finished with now, that I'm ready to be done with now. Here's some stories I've been telling myself that, I'm committed to moving through. And in wild mode, it could be anything. It could be like, I'm ready to set the world on fire. Watch me.
I think my natural is wild mode, but I'm going to stick to my word. And Jane said she's ready to talk to us. So Luba, if you could help Jane to come up and ask her question.
Sorry about that. That was my dog moaning, not me. I didn't realize you could hear then. Don't know if you can hear her in the background. But the question I wanted to ask was actually to do with like cycling through modes. You mentioned, Carlie, that you cycle through very, very quickly. Are there people who literally go through very slowly? I mean, if I look back at my own life, I've had times when I've perhaps too long lived in super mode and then too long lived in bear mode, and I haven't changed them through the day. It's maybe taken me a year, 2 years, 3 years, and I've been in one place. Is that also a normal progression, or is everybody different, or have I been denying the other parts of me?
It's a really great question. And I totally relate. For a long time, I was in that very kind of productive kind of energy. I was in my 20s, and, it was just a season of life. And I look back and I think what was happening was I was just kind of ignoring the other ones. And I was making it part of my identity that I am this, I am productive, I am busy, I am organized, I'm reliable, I get up early and I get things done. And so I kind of just made it part of my identity, which meant, so in my super mode, I would thrive, but the other times I would be fighting against myself. So I would be pushing through my bear mode and I would just feel tired, but I would get it done anyway. And I would push through my sparkle mode and I'd be like, no, Carlie, we're not just going to dance around and have fun. You've got things to do. So I would kind of argue with myself. So there was sort of 3/4 of me that didn't feel nourished, that didn't feel fulfilled or cared for or satisfied. So there was times when I wasn't okay. I was depressed. At times I was anxious, and I look back and I don't feel that way anymore. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But I think one of them is that I'm nourishing all those other parts of me as well, rather than just pushing through. So I think what tends to happen is a lot of people do exactly that. They really, you know, they pick one part of themselves and that's their identity. And that's what, and often it is super mode because that's what society pats us on the back for. Well done. Look at you go. What a legend. And so we kind of just push through. And at some point we just go, I can't do it like that anymore. I need some balance, or I need a break. Or, you know, sometimes people have a breakdown and they're just like, I'm not okay. I'm drinking so much coffee through the day and then I'm drinking so much wine at night so I can wind back down again. And, you know, everybody's experience is so different. But yes, I do think that can absolutely happen. I do think those people are still moving through the modes. They just don't realize that it's happening. And they just feel like a motivational roller coaster, you know. Sometimes they feel like they want to get up and go. I also think that there's kind of a micro and a macro kind of level that's happening as well. You know, sometimes I'll have a whole month where my super mode is really strong and the others are much more milder. And then I'll have a whole month where I feel really beary, like my bear mode is really deep and the other ones are just mild. I just have a really mild super mode and a mild wild mode. So I think we can kind of go through these seasons, and there are other people who have written about that. My book is about that more macro level, the day-to-day. But I do know people that spend sort of 3 or 4 days, maybe 5 days in each mode. And sometimes it can stretch out and end up syncing with their menstrual cycle. But most of the people that I know, and it's been interesting during all the lockdowns and all the isolation that people have been experiencing, is that people have actually been moving through more quickly because it is more that Groundhog Day, and they're able to be like, oh, I'm going to take a little break now, or I'm going to go for a walk now. Whereas when we were going to work and being in an office for 10 hours, it's harder to do that. So a lot of people are speeding up. But most people, when they first come across this work, are doing maybe 1 day in each mode. And then it speeds up. As you pay attention to it and you fill those cups, it gets faster.
So interesting. Jane, if you have any additional questions or you want to...
Just yeah. Thank you very much. And I think the idea of the micro and macro level is really useful to hear. But I'm going to try and put every mode in every day if I can.
Well, you'll notice... It'll happen. So that's something that'll just happen naturally because you'll only shift. You can't go, okay, bear mode, I'm finished now. It's time for super mode. You got to fill that bear cup. So the best thing you can do in every moment is ask yourself, what do I want? What do I desire? What am I craving? What am I yearning for on a soul level right now? Like, yes, I've got a to-do list there. And yes, I have a habit of being hyper-focused on that. And that's a great thing, right? You know, that part of me has built a really successful business. Part of me wrote a book with 2 little kids, you know, so that's great. But also just tune in the moment and go, what would feel soul deep nourishing right now? What am I craving? Is it just to pick up a book and make a cup of tea and read a chapter of a book? Or is it to ring an old friend and ask how she is? Or is it to, you know what, I just want to schedule all my weekend. I just want to know what I've got on this week. Or is it, I have to clean out that linen closet. It's driving me crazy. I can't look at it another minute. And just ask yourself, and that'll give you an indication. You might even know by which clothes you put on. I always know I'm in wild mode if I'm wearing leopard print. I only like leopard print in wild mode for some reason. Or, you know, this is a berry jumper that I like to wear. So you'll find little clues. And then that'll tell you what you need to do. And that's what'll speed it up.
Thank you. It's so cool. Jane, thank you so much for your question. And please hug your doggy for us if you can.
Yes.
And Luba, if we have anyone else who wants to ask a question, please bring them up in a while. I always get to ask a question in between. So, Carlie, tell us this thing, because you've been working with this system for quite a bit now, and you must have experienced different people going through different modes. Actually, no, first I'll ask a question of our audience. You know, I've been listening to you, and I do not know why you say this is such a female approach to motivation. I want to ask if we have guys in the audience, if you could raise your hand or leave an emoji if you relate to that, because I do think it's just a very universal thing. I've seen, I have men in my life, and I've seen them going through similar modes, except I've never seen Vision wanting to organize the cupboard, linen cupboard.
Yeah.
But I guess he's shows in a different way. He's wild mode. And to you, I just wanted to ask this thing. We live in a society which prefers, obviously, one mode over everything else. And you just said a very interesting thing, that we are moving through all the modes anyway. We just sometimes don't pay attention to them, or we ignore them, or we try to rush past them, and it seems we feel like we're in a certain mode. I wonder, and it's a weird question, maybe it's a wild mode question. I wonder, is it okay that our society is so obsessed with us having to be always in the super mode, always in productive, functional, hyper-productive mode? Is it really the only way to success? Is that, because why I'm asking that is that we have this idea that, I don't know, maybe you've heard those quotes, like while everybody else is sleeping, you get an advantage, you keep working, wake up earlier, so those who are lazy, they will sleep in, and you will get the work done. And is it really the only way to achieving stuff, to doing things?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's sort of two parts to that question, and I can sort of answer them at the same time. And that is probably in your community here at Mindvalley, a lot of the people who are men are going to go, I relate with this, because they're probably the kind of men who are really quite evolved and are maybe in touch with their inner feminine, for example. So my partner's a builder. I go to the job site. A lot of the guys on his job site are going to be like, no, that's not me. That's not me at all, right? And that's obviously, I'm massively generalizing. But the people in here who are interested in personal development, perhaps spiritual growth, things like that, then they're more likely to be in touch with this cyclical nature. So the feminine is very cyclical. It's always moving and it's very creative. And so to someone who is, a masculine person, like someone who, generally feels that they are masculine at their core, but also have a really healthy connection to their inner feminine, cyclical, creative nature, they're so going to spot this in themselves. The problem is that so many men have been raised since little boys to not recognize their emotions, not recognize how they feel, and not kind of check in with themselves and go, oh, what do I need? Do I need a rest, or do I need this or that? It's like, no, get up and get on with it. And I know, particularly here in Australia, in the culture I've been raised in, little girls are allowed to have feelings, little boys aren't. And that's changing. And I hope that this work that I'm doing contributes to that. I know the work that you guys are doing in here absolutely contributes to that. And I think that's really beautiful. But I think
I also have their cave time, their Netflix time. That is
yes.
So and they also have, it's a cliche, but guys say, I want my Friday, with beers and friends. That's obviously sparkle mode. Maybe for guys it should have a different name, but generally it's the same, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the thing. So the framework that I teach is, it really resonates mostly for women. It resonates for some men, but mostly for women. And that's as far as my research has gone so far. I've only researched with women so far. Mm-hmm. But now that my work is reaching more people, just like this, I'm getting in front of more people. There's more and more stories coming to me exactly like that. I'm getting emails from men going, I absolutely relate. This is me too. Thank you so much. I've had transgender people who are like, oh my gosh, you're explaining so much. And, I didn't know any of this. And people from, all different backgrounds, life experiences going, this is me too. So this is what's happening now as it gets bigger and bigger and more known. That body of knowledge is expanding, and I'm so grateful for that.
Mm-hmm. And the second part of my question. Yeah.
Yes. The second part of your question about, that's the thing, is like a lot of what's taught is it's very masculine. It's very go get 'em, tiger. And when we're in our super mode, we really relate to that. Some of those really super alpha male type teachings that, rah, 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 woo, like, I'm like, I really relate to that. But then when I'm in bear mode, I'm like, oh no, that's too much. It's too, I don't want to. I just want to have a break. And in sparkle mode, I'm like, I just want to love everybody. I don't want to hustle. I just want to love everybody. And I just want to connect on a really authentic human level. And so I hope that, again, that my teachings are going to contribute to a real change, to really allowing people to bring all the parts of themselves forward, because there's magic in those other modes too. In bear mode, we're very intuitive. And like in sparkle mode, we can really tune into someone's energy and really connect on such a beautiful level. And, you know, in bear mode, we can really release stuff that's very deep in there. So those other modes are very powerful, but when we don't celebrate them, they don't get to really do what they're here to do. So I hope that it's changing. I don't think it's required to be. I think that approach is why a lot of people burn out and, you know, walk away from their businesses, or, you know, end up numbing themselves with different substances and habits. And a lot of people are there, might be achieving a lot, but they might not actually feel good. They might not be sleeping. They might not feel good in their body. And so I think that this is important to have these conversations. So I'm so glad that I'm here.
Thank you. Luba, tell us if we have anyone who is ready and willing to ask the question live. We have quite a lot of questions here. Many questions come in.
Just chat questions, only in the chat.
Only in the chat. You know what? I'll ask the question then. I guess it's a challenge sometimes to come up, but we have quite a lot of questions in Q&A. And Patricia is asking, how do you inspire and motivate self when feeling sad and crappy? And how do you get yourself out of this mode? I think that's a good question, because that's the biggest challenge in our current culture.
So filling that cup. So ask yourself that question. What do I need? What would feel really nourishing for me? So if you're feeling sad and crappy, it's quite likely that it's bear mode. It's when we're most, like, we could feel sad and crappy anytime. Something might have happened to make us feel that way. But if we're just feeling sad and crappy and it's like, I don't really know why, I just feel that way and I'm just a bit meh, then generally it's bear mode. And bear mode is just when we often just need to have a moment with ourselves. And so for me, journaling has been so powerful, just to write down what I'm feeling and just to say, right now, I'm feeling so beary. Right now, I'm feeling sad and I don't even know why. And right now, I'm just feeling crappy and I can't explain it. And just to write it out and move it through, and then just ask myself, what do I need? And usually it's go take a bubble bath, or have a nap, put on a meditation and have a sleep. Or there might be someone's voice you want to hear. You know, sometimes I'm like, I just want to listen to some Eckhart Tolle. Or, you know, it might be like, just ask yourself, what do I need? And give yourself that unapologetically, because we're not raised being asked, what do you want? What's going to feel good for you? Often as kids, we're told like, oh, what do you want now? Stop asking me for things. So we've often been trained out of asking ourselves what we want and what we need and what's going to feel good. And so that can be very powerful. If you feel sad and crappy, wow. There have been thousands of people that have said to me, you know, you teaching me about bear mode has been the biggest life-changing thing that's ever happened to me, because now I embrace it and I appreciate it. And gosh, you know, I'm moving so many, you know, repressed emotions through my body, and I feel so much more energetic now because I'm actually stopping and resting when I need to. So
I guess there are two types of extremes. So there is this group of people who refuse to acknowledge bear mode and they burn out. And then there is the second group of people, I believe, and this is my theory right now, I'm improvising, those who are a very long time in bear mode. Does that mean they are not recognizing their super mode and other modes and ignoring that part? Have you ever come across such situations? And then I guess I'm building up on the previous question. It's essentially similar.
Yeah, I guess the short answer to that question is, if it's not going away, it's not bear mode. Like, if you never want to get out of bed, that might be something to talk to a psychologist about, or something like that, right? Like, if it never goes away, it's not bear mode. But sometimes what can happen is we hit bear mode, and so we go, oh, you know, I just want to cancel everything. And then we feel regret about that. So say we were starting to build a business and then we hit big bear mode and we're like, no, I don't want to do it anymore. Delete my Facebook page. And, you know, oh, I'm too scared. Stop. I'm not going to do it anymore. And then we might hit super mode and feel regret about having done that. And then we might hit sparkle mode and feel lonely. And then we might hit wild mode and feel stifled. So if you're always feeling crappy, there might be something else going on. There might be something dietary. You might be eating something you're allergic to that's making you feel horrible. You know, it could be anything going on. But I think that what might be happening, and what one of the options that's worth looking at, is, are you actually just feeling the sort of shadow side of each mode, the negative side of each mode, where your wild woman is stifled? And maybe there's just some big changes that need to be made in your life so that your wild woman has a bit of freedom. And, you know, your sparkly fairy can go and, you know, see some friends. Maybe it's time to get out there and make some friends. Or, you know, in super mode, it's like, you know, because in super mode, we can feel really frustrated if we're not getting results. So to use the business example, if someone's starting to build a business and it's not working, and they hit super mode and they're like, why isn't it working? And they get really frustrated. So they're like, oh, there must be something wrong with me. So that can be happening where we're really experiencing that shadow side. So understanding the modes can be like, oh, this is why I feel frustrated, because I want results. So what's something simple I can do today that's going to feel like results? What's something really tangible? What can I organize? What can I, what's going to feel like productivity? And then in Sparkle Mode, I might be like, how can I get connection right now? What can I do? Who can I reach out to? Where can I go?
I guess
or can I do a gratitude practice?
I suspect that Sparkle Mode must be quite a challenge for quite a lot of people nowadays.
Yeah.
So
a lot of
what
people
do
feel
you
really
do
lonely.
if you feel so? We've talked quite a bit about bear and super, but what do you do if you feel lonely because you're in a Sparkle Mode, or if you feel frustrated because you're in wild mode and you feel helpless about what's going on?
Yeah, man. I'm in Melbourne and we've had some really, really big and long lockdowns last year. And there were a lot of people that felt really, really lonely. And I really felt for people in their Sparkle Mode. The thing about Sparkle Mode is that there are other things that will fill that cup. So, we can get on a Zoom call with a bunch of friends and have an online trivia night, right? Like there are things that we can do. It's not the same as having someone in the same room. But in some places in the world, it's not an option, right? Like that was what it was like here. And so my bear mode was harder because I couldn't get any alone time, right? Because my family were there and I couldn't go anywhere. And my kids are quite small. And so in Sparkle Mode, for those who are feeling lonely and that's really challenging at the moment, a couple of things. See, how can you reach out online, through social media, things like that. But also there are other things that will fill that sparkle cup. So for me, dancing. Oh, feels glorious. Dance around the lounge room on your own. Put your favorite old songs on. Watch an old nostalgic movie that you loved when you were a kid. Bake, decorate a cake, make something beautiful, right? Create art. Maybe put some makeup on and curl your hair and take some photos. That's me. It's what I like to do. That might not be everyone. But things like that feel fun. Gratitude journaling, for instance, gratitude practice, mindfulness, those sorts of things. So it's really cool to get to know you, because what fills my sparkle cup might be very different for you, right? Like you might be like, no, I'm not into that. I'm not into dancing or something. So that's what everybody's journey is that they get to go on, is figuring out what does fill that cup for them, what does feel good for them, so they can keep moving. Because the faster you move through, this is the beautiful thing, is that if you're moving really fast, so I hit super mode every day. So I can do the super things every day. So that's really cool. So moving fast, there's some benefits of that. There's some benefits of moving slowly as well. It's kind of what you're going to naturally find a groove for you. But my natural groove is going through every day. So I know that if I don't get something done in super mode today, that's fine. It's coming back tomorrow. I'll get it done then.
Thank you, Carlie dear. It was very, very interesting. And I know there were questions that I never got to ask and people didn't get to ask, but we'll practice more for the next interviews. Maybe we'll get through more questions. I want to ask a question while I'm picking up my phone to take a picture of us. I want to ask a question. If people want to go deeper into that teaching of yours, or just to understand you more, because I've checked your Instagram and you're quite a unique person. First of all, you sing a lot, which is awesome, and second, you talk about so many different topics. So if you guys want to get more of you, where can they do that while I'm taking a picture?
You can come find me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I have a podcast called Genius Unleashed. But particularly to learn about the modes, the best thing to do is to get the book. It's going to be a really beautiful dive in. There's checklists for each mode. There's journal prompts for each mode. We talk about soul modes in money, soul modes in relationships, soul modes in mindset work. So the book is really great. But of course, yeah, come find me on social media for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to connect actually nowadays. It's something we have. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone who joined us. I know we forgot to send the notifications. I'm really grateful that you guys are so active on Connections app and you knew anyway that you could come today. But you know, who is going to be watching it, this video and recording, there will be loads of people watching that. It's going to be up. So thank you guys for joining. Jane, thank you for you and your dog. And of course, Carlie, thank you so much. Traditionally, some people know my tradition. Please leave a heart for my guest, either in the chat right now or in the comments if you watch it later in recording. Yes, Carlie, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your discoveries, and for your really, really warm and kind and loving and such a sparkly energy. Thank you so much for infusing my day here with your energy.
Thank you. Thanks, Kristina. Thank you, everybody.
And see you next week. Bye-bye.